Well, good morning. So glad that you're here. And if we haven't met, I'm Adam. I have the privilege of being the lead pastor here. And if you're coming in for the first time, you're in the middle of this series that we started on January 8th. It's a new horizon, discovering a new way to live. As we exist as a church, we want to inspire people to follow Jesus. And so over the next, we got 4 more weeks, and we're just talking about what does it mean to follow Jesus, and what are some things, looking at his life and some specific things that will make our lives better. As we trust in him, what are the things that we need that he tells us to do that will make our lives better? And if you're here on that first week on January 8th, we talked about the Jesus way is more about self-denial than it is self-improvement. In light of a new year, talking about resolutions. Resolutions aren't bad, wanting yourself to be better and doing the things that will help you be better are not bad. But as we look to follow Jesus, he gave us an invitation. He gave us an invitation to follow him. And what that meant was to deny yourself and follow him and do what he's asking you to do, to surrender the full authority of your life to him. And then last week, if you were here, what a phenomenal message that our student pastor, Jeremy Davis, gave us in light of how do we find hope in the midst of disappointment, in the midst of pain, in the midst of suffering. And he gave us this bottom line that one day, everything will be made whole. That's the promise that Jesus gives us. And just for a moment, before we kind of move into today's message, if you have a middle school or high school student, I can't move forward without telling you, you want your student to be in our student ministry. Jeremy is phenomenal. You want, as you learned last week, you want them to be under his teaching and preaching every single week. Last night, our student ministry had a great event that was really designed for your students to invite your friends. It's called Double Dog Dare. And they're actually in their environment right now. It happens at 11 o'clock every week. And again, you want your students to be in that environment. We have great leaders. So again, would love for you to push your student to be a part of our student ministry. Again, you'll be glad that you did that, and your student will be glad that they're involved. So as where we're moving today is, what does it look like to overcome fear? What does it look like to push back on fear? We all have fear. Some things are kind of fun fears. It's like, I don't know if you like haunted houses or scary movies. There's a lot of people that, forget Christmas decorations. Just 20-foot skeleton in my yard, that's my avenue. I know I came home one night, and our kids, we have 4 children, and the lights were out, and they're going around scaring each other. I'm like, where did you learn that? Literally, one of the kids, and even JoJo, he's 4, he wanted to be a part as well, is one person is trying to scare the bejesus out of the other 3, and it's pitch black. That's fun for them, not fun for this guy. I'm like, what are y'all doing? Where did you? Well, they learned it from a friend. But my fear is this. Heights. And I tell you that is, I don't know if you know what this is, but this is called an Oculus. This is my son Jackson's, he's 12. And this is a virtual reality video game. And they have on this little eyepiece is there's one thing where you can literally walk a plank. And I remember a couple of years ago, we were at Action Air. Action Air has these things, and my kids are having a heyday making fun of me. My wife is making fun of me because they got me to put this thing on, and I had never kind of seen the whole plank thing. And I'm like, okay, it's a video game. It's a video game. And as I take a step forward, my brain takes over, and I'm like scared to death. I end up being on the floor, sitting down in the middle of Action Air, and my kids are literally laughing their heads off. My wife is laughing her head off. The employees are laughing their heads off because I am terrified of heights. My biggest fear, that whole going to camp and getting on the top of that pole and jumping off, not this guy. My son, Dad, you're gonna go skydiving with me one. No, I'm not. I will not get in a plane and jump out. Those of you who jump out of airplanes, y'all are awesome. Not this guy. But this is the reality, is And I wish I had a picture or a video to show you of me in action there, but this is the best I could come up with. This is what I look like. This is in China. They have a glass bridge, and these people are like terrified. They're on their hands and knees. This is why. Look at that. This is like a literal picture in this national forest. They have a glass bridge that is who knows how many thousands and thousands of feet, and they walk across that glass bridge for fun. Again, not this guy. And that's the reality is like those of you who love Halloween, and I like Halloween too. I just don't like being scared. I mean, if I go in a haunted house, I'm like gonna punch somebody or something like that. Because I don't want somebody scaring me. I don't want somebody chasing me with a chainsaw without the chain on and all. I don't like that kind of stuff. But the reality is that that's kind of fun. But where we're going today is the reality that we have fear in our lives. Because of things that happen to us in our lives, we become fearful. And I want to take a moment to really, as followers of Jesus, what does it look like to push back? To push back on the fear that a lot of times cripples us. A lot of times we don't know what to do with our fears. We're terrified. A lot of us are so good at putting on masks that our own spouse doesn't know that we're fearful and that it's crippling us. But what does it look like? What does it look like to expand your faith and see and allow Jesus to be a part of your life and help you drive out that fear? Well, first of all, you got to know what faith is. Faith is confidence. Faith is confidence and assurance that God is who he says he is and that he will do all that he's promised to do. And we find that in the book of Hebrews. If you have your Bibles, Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1. Now faith is confidence in what we hope for, and it's assurance about what we do not see. It's confidence and assurance in what we don't see. We are saved by Jesus through faith. We have confidence in what we can't see, what we can't control. We have assurance that he came to this earth and died a horrible death so we could be called children of God. That is us as followers of Jesus. And through faith, as we supply the faith, we can turn our lives over to him. We can give him authority, as we saw in week 1, and watch how he expounds our faith, how he makes our life new. And that's where we're going today. I want to tell you a story of Jesus and his followers. Something big just happened, and the disciples, the guys that followed him around, there was 12 of them. A lot of people followed him around, but he had his closest followers, which was 12. And they're exhausted. They had just took care of like this huge crowd. If you're new to the Bible, or maybe you've never heard this story before, is Jesus just fed 5,000 people. As we learned in week 1, they're traveling around with him everywhere, because obviously a lot of people are traveling around because the word travels fast that Jesus can heal people. Jesus can heal people just by touching the hem of his garment or the hem of his robe. They were healed. So obviously a lot of people are going to be following him around. And so that's where we pick up in the story is these 5,000 people, they were hungry, and Jesus performs a miracle. As you've heard the story before maybe, is this little boy had 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. And Jesus maximized it through his power, and he fed all 5,000 people with this food. So that just took place. And I'm sure the disciples were taking care of people and trying not to let people get close to Jesus, because that's what they did. They were there to protect him. So they were probably just ornery. They were tired, like, hey, let's get out of here. And Jesus, what does he do? In Matthew chapter 14, this is what happens after. It says in verse 22, immediately, Jesus made the disciples get into a boat and go on ahead of him to the other side while he dismissed the crowd. You're talking about 5,000 people. So something was going on. Like, why did Jesus send them away? Probably because they were frustrated. They were tired of dealing with people. Probably yelling out, "Let me get close to Jesus." No. Yes, let them close to me. I'm sure that's what Jesus was saying. So they're obviously frustrated. They're tired. So Jesus sends them away. After he had dismissed them, he went up on a mountainside by himself to pray. That's what he did. When he was with people all the time, so often he would get by himself and spend time with his heavenly Father. So later that night, he was there alone up on the mountainside. And he saw that the boat was already a considerable distance from land. Keyword, buffeted by the waves because the wind was against it. Buffeted means to strike violently. There was a storm and the waves were just killing the boat. And it goes on, it says, shortly before dawn, Jesus went to them walking on the lake. And then the disciples saw him walking on the lake and they were terrified. "It's a ghost," they said. And they cried out in fear. They were tired, late at night, probably wee hours of the morning, 2, 3, 4, whatever it was. They were exhausted. They were exhausted. And then they saw Jesus coming and they were terrified. "It's a ghost." And they cried out in fear. A lot of times we're like the disciples. We have the storms of this life. They just overwhelm us. But what I want you to know about the story is Jesus sent them into the storm. He was obviously doing something on purpose. But usually when we're tired, exhausted, we're tired of work, we're tired of dealing with kids, we're tired of dealing with our spouse, and storms start crashing against us. I don't know if you are a fisherman. A lot of time we breeze past the details of the story, but these guys are in a boat, a small boat compared to our boats today. And my dad he worked on a shrimp boat, and I can remember him telling me stories. These boats were 80 to 90 feet that he worked on. And he would tell me stories about when storms came, that there were some times that the waves were over the boat so high, and he was afraid. And so that's what I think about when I read this story, is they were tired. And they were tired of rowing, because that's what they did. They didn't have motors back then. They were rowing. And it's been a long day. It's easy to live in fear when we're afraid. And so what I want to talk about is maybe some fears that the disciples went through that so often we go through ourselves. And the first one was the worst is coming. They were rowing at night and the storm came and waves crashing against the boat. And they're thinking, where the heck is Jesus? What is he doing? We're going to die. And obviously they were terrified. And so often we're the same. We have these. We imagine the worst case scenarios. Don't we? In our imagination, like when something comes our way, we go to the worst. We go to the bottom of the barrel. What's going to happen? I'm fearing. This just happened to me this past week. I got a text from my son, Jackson. He was at home. He wasn't feeling well. So he stayed home from school. And he sends me a text. He said, "Hey, Dad, the sheriff came by the house and is going to call you." And I automatically what? I go to the worst case scenario. What the heck? I'm going to jail. I didn't even do anything, but I'm going to the worst case scenario. Why is the sheriff looking at me? Did I not pay a bill? Are they looking for my dad? What is all this stuff? And we go to the worst case scenario. And so I get a call from the sheriff. I didn't answer. Why? I? Why wouldn't I answer the phone call? Like I didn't do anything wrong. Like headlines, pastor gets arrested by the sheriff. I didn't answer. So immediately I feel guilty. I'm like, crap, I got to call him back. So I call him back and I say, hello, this is Adam Roberson. Yes, sir. We came by the house. You live at 103 Spring Valley Court. Yes, I do. And I said, what can I help you with? And he said the name. And I'm saying, that's not my name. My name is Adam Roberson. Oh, and you live at 103 Spring Valley Court? Yes, sir. That was my son you talked to. He said, oh, we're looking for such and such. I said, oh, that was the previous owner before we bought the house. We've lived here 2.5 years. Oh, okay, hey, when you get mail, we just needed to give him some papers. And I'm like, well, what do I need to do? He said, nothing, you're good to go. Thank you so much for calling me back. And hey, just if you get mail from the previous owner, just send it back to the post office. Okay, great. But I lost like years off my life thinking I'm going to jail. But my point is, we go to the worst case scenarios. We go to the worst case scenarios. We get a call. Uh-oh, my boss is calling. Oh, man, I can't call that person back. What if they don't do this, do that? And we go to the worst case scenarios in our fear. But this is what Jesus did. This is what he said in verse 27. But Jesus, in their fear, Jesus immediately said to them, take courage. Take courage. It is I. Don't be afraid. I know you're fearful. It is I. Take courage. He didn't say have courage. He said take courage. Take it because I'm with you. And that is where we're going today, is how do you drive out fear? The presence of Jesus in the midst of the storm will bring you comfort. He will see you through any situation. He will. He's saying, take courage. It is I. Don't be afraid. You got a child that's rebelling or not doing what you think they should be doing, take courage. I'm with you. You got that bad diagnosis this week and you are absolutely terrified. You need to hear Jesus' words this morning. Take courage. It is I. I'm here. Don't be afraid. Whatever the storm is that you are going through, know that Jesus' presence in your life, in the midst of whatever you're going through, is what you need to push back on the fear that you're experiencing. The guilt, the shame, anxiety, depression. You're overwhelmed with debt right now that you don't know how you're gonna get out of. You're a friend of a person who's in the middle of a health crisis and you don't know what to say, when to say it. Hear the words of Jesus this morning. Take courage. Don't be afraid. And what I want to do is not a closure, but right now I want to ask the band to come out in this moment. Because with a room this size, people watching, I am 100% positive there are people in this room watching online that are going through incredible situations in your life. And you need to hear the words of Jesus and allow it to bring you comfort. Allow it to bring you peace in the midst of craziness, in the midst of chaos. So I'm gonna ask them to go ahead and come out. And what I want you to do, I want you to reflect. I want you to close your eyes, follow along on the screen with yours. Just sit down and allow Jesus' words to bring you peace this morning like only he can. Take courage. Take courage. It is I. Don't be afraid. Lord Jesus, I pray in this moment For the person who is at the bottom of their barrel. They've tried to move forward with life, and life just keeps crashing violently against them. And they are so overwhelmed. I pray for the person who is very good at wearing the mask, that even their own family doesn't know that they're fearful. God, I pray that you will bring them peace in the power of your Holy Spirit right now. God, let people know that it is your presence and your presence alone that gives them the strength to push back on the fear that they're experiencing, God. We pray that right now. God, let us know that you are here.
Take courage, my heart. Stay steadfast, my soul. He's in the waiting. He's in the waiting. Hold on to your hope as your triumph unfolds. He's never failing. He's never failing. Sing praise, my soul, find strength in joy. Let his words lead you on. Do not forget his great faithfulness. Finish all he's begun. So take courage, my heart. Stay steadfast, my soul. He's in the waiting. He's in the waiting. Hold on to your hope as your triumph unfolds. He's never failing. He's never failing. So take courage, my heart. Stay steadfast, my soul. He's in the waiting. He's in the waiting. Hold on to your hope as your triumph unfolds. He's never failing. He's never failing. You are who hold the stars, who call them each by name, will surely keep your promise to me that I will rise your victory. You who hold the stars, who call them each by name, will surely keep your promise to me that I will rise
courage. It is I. Don't be afraid. It is his presence that can bring you life, that can bring you strength in the midst of weakness, that can be your defender when you're attacked, that can be your inspiration when you feel depleted. He is your strength when you are weak, and he wants you to know that he's here. As you supply the faith, confidence, assurance that he is there. He is who he says he is. He will do what he says he'll do. He's saying, take courage. Some other fears. As you stand in him, before we get to the other fears, perfect love, as you stand in his perfect love, it drives out fear. 1 John 4:18. There is no fear in love. There's no fear in love. But perfect love drives out fear. Some other fears that the disciples went through, we go through, is my best is not enough. My best. They were exhausted in the middle of the night. In the middle of the night, they had given all they could give. And they moved to fear. And what happens? As Jesus came towards them, Peter, the leader of the pack, or so he thought, one of Jesus's closest disciples, he said, Lord, if it's you, tell me to come to you on the water. Jesus said, come. Then Peter got down out of the boat and he walked on water and came towards Jesus. Notice he didn't just jump in the water and try to walk on water. He said, Lord, if it is you, command me, tell me. I'm not going to do it on my own. Tell me to come to you. And Jesus said, come. And he gets out of the boat. If you're new to the Bible, this may be kind of weird for you, but he literally walked on water. That's like me coming off this stage, I would fall to the ground. But in Peter's faith in Jesus, he said, Lord, command me to come. And he went towards Jesus. And the boat is a symbol of us being comfortable. The boat is our comfort. Notice that Peter was the only one who got out of the boat. The other 11 said, we're good. We're in our fear. Peter, go ahead. Our best, we can think sometimes in our fears that our best is not enough. And Jesus says, I will see you through your fears, and my strength will become yours. I can create something great in your worst moment. And Peter, he goes on. It says, but when he saw the wind, he was afraid. Again, he was walking on water. But he saw the waves and he saw the wind and he began to sink. He cried out, Lord, save me. Lord, save me. Key word, immediately Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. And he said, you of little faith. He said, why did you doubt? And the other fear, not only my best is not enough, but failure is final. Notice we give Peter, a lot of people give Peter a bad rap. He didn't have enough faith. He was walking on water and he was the only one who got out of the boat. And in this life, as you move forward, you're gonna have failures, but it's not final. What did Jesus do? He saved him. He saved him. He reached down and saved him. But the issue was Peter took his eyes off Jesus. He began to focus more on the fear of the waves, of the wind, than keeping his eyes on Jesus. I love this quote by Max Lucado. It says, if you feed your faith, your confidence, your assurance. You will starve your fears. So often we do the opposite. We feed our fears and starve our faith. We focus on our fears. We focus on social media. We focus on politics. We focus on everything but Jesus. And it ends up starving our faith. What Jesus wants you to do is supply the faith and watch what he does through your life. It goes on, the story. It says, when Jesus and Peter got back to the boat, when they climbed back in, the wind died down. And if I can just say something, the wind of the storms of your life, the wind will die down. You will come on the other side of whatever storm you're facing. The question is, what's going to happen in the midst of it? When they climbed back in, the wind died down. Then those who were in the boat, they worshiped him, saying, truly, you are the Son of God. Truly, you are the Son of God. So many of us, we've seen God's faithfulness in our life, and we worship him for it. We've seen him take us through health crisis. We've seen him take us through things that we would never imagine. And he is faithful, and so we worship him. That's what the disciples did. And Jesus will see you through any storm that you have. Supply the faith. Quit starving your faith. Feed your faith, and you will see that through Jesus, through him being with you, as you take courage and as you trust in him, you will begin to drive back on those fears. That fear that's moving you more towards being more anxious, moving you towards depression. As you focus on him, as you take courage, he will see you through it. But our trust in him, we have to continue to supply our faith. What does that look like? It's so easy for me. It's so easy. The last one, failure is final. That's a big one for me. So many times I fail at being a dad. I fail at being a husband. I fail at being a leader. And I can think to myself, the fear can cripple me to moving towards, that's the last time. I mean, really, the shame and guilt that I feel. But what Jesus is commanding us to do, inviting us to do, encouraging us to do, because he knows what he can do as we focus on him, is he will begin to give us a bigger vision of himself. That's what he did in this story. He sent them into the storm. And at the end of the storm, when they were worshiping, he wanted to give them a bigger vision of who he was, a bigger perspective. And so many of us have seen that. So many of us have been hurt. So many of us have gone through horrible situations. And Jesus moved us through it as we trusted in him. And so we worship him. We worship him before, we worship him during, we worship him after. He wants you to know that failure is not final. He wants you to know that you are enough through him and that the worst is not coming. As fear tries to cripple you, he wants you to know he will see you through as you trust in him. That's the invitation today. As your fear is whatever it is, the health crisis, you're overloaded with debt and you don't know how you're going to get out of it. Your kids are rebelling. You keep fighting with your wife. Whatever it is, the worst is not coming. As you trust in him, Jesus will give you strength in your weakness. He will give you a new perspective. All we have to do is supply the faith. And it's in his presence. His presence is what helps us drive back on the fear. It's what helps us conquer the fear. Doesn't mean we're not going to have fear. It doesn't mean that, as you learned last week from Jeremy, trouble is here all around us. Things are broken in this world. But we have the invitation to trust Jesus with every part of our life. And when we do, his presence will help you drive back and conquer the fear in your life. That is the invitation today. That's the new horizon, that he can give you life. He can give you strength in the midst of weakness. He can give you peace in the midst of heartache. In the middle of your health crisis, he can give you joy and peace as you trust in him. That's the invitation today. The story that Jesus wants more for your life. He doesn't want you to sit back in the boat. He wants to challenge you. He wants you to get out of your comfort zone because he has something bigger and better for your life. We have to supply the faith. Faith over fear. That is what Jesus gives us. So as we close out, I just would love to challenge you. Those of you in the midst of storms, take courage. Don't be afraid. Those of you who say your best is not enough, know that Jesus can give you strength in the midst of your weakness. And those of us who think failure is final, he's the God of second, third, fourth, 50, 100 chances. He loves you. He loves you and he wants what's best for you. He just wants you to give him your life and watch how he gives you a bigger perspective, a bigger vision of who he is. Those of you who have never placed your trust in Jesus, I would love to lead you through a prayer. It's nothing magical about this prayer. It's just a time where God gives God time to work, forgive, and he forgave through his son Jesus. He gave everything on your behalf, and he just wants you to trust. He wants you to put the full weight of your life in him and watch how he changes your life forever. I would love to lead you through this prayer. Just repeat after me if you would like to take a step to trust Jesus for the first time. Say, Heavenly Father, I thank you. Thank you for loving me. Thank you for sending your son, giving everything on our behalf, sending him to this earth to die a death so we could be forgiven. God, I believe that you forgave me on the cross. I believe in your resurrection that conquered death for forever. God, I give you my life, every part of my life. Help me to face the storms that keep crashing violently in my life. Help me to trust you. And thank you for the gift of new life through your son, Jesus. Amen. Those of you who took a step, we would love to come alongside you and help you understand what the next steps are in following Jesus. He wants a new horizon for you. And as you trusted in him, we just want to come alongside you. We would love for you to tell somebody who brought you, go to the Next Steps kiosk. I'll be down front. Again, we just want to come alongside you. So thank you. And we celebrate with you as you took a step to new life. And those of you who need anything, please go to the Next Steps kiosk. We would love to help you. Anyway, I'll be down front, and we would love to see you next week as we continue this series. Thank you.